Hey, check it out, guys. I've got a twofer for you today. We're doing the urban joggers and jacket tutorial plus a zipper hack. That's right. Let's go. You will see that I am choosing to do all of the pocket options. So first off, we have the pant legs front and back. We have the inside pocket, the outside pocket with the cutout. We will also have the band for the pocket, the jogger cuffs, and the back pocket. I labeled a lot of my parts so that you could be able to know which one is the right side and the wrong side, as well as what the pieces are. So anytime you see blue tape, that's showing right side, and then with the post-its, that's just labeling what the piece is. Let's get started. We're gonna do the front pockets first. You're gonna be taking this strip and kind of centering it on that pocket cutout. Now, I did this wrong initially, and so really it should be folded in half just like this, with right sides facing out and then placed on the cutout. You're going to want to pin it to the inner edge of that cutout about 1/4 of an inch from the corner so that you know where you're going to be sewing, so you go 1/4 of an inch past that cutout opening. And then you're also going to lay out the pocket piece that has the cutout, place it right side down, and then replace the pins. So just to clarify, this portion of my recording is showing that the pocket tab is not folded because I initially forgot to fold it. So just make sure that yours is folded and that otherwise it looks the same as mine. Once you have those pins in place, then you can sew from pin to pin. I just did this on the sewing machine, making sure to backstitch on either end. And just for further clarity, the pant legs are both facing right sides up, so the pocket and the pants are like right sides together. So yeah, we're going to sew from pin to pin now. I'm going to be doing a lot of showing you my stitching, at least here and there. I usually speed it up, but if you are wanting to see what it looks like, then go ahead and watch it, otherwise you can skip ahead. So if you paid attention to the notes about fabric for this pattern, it was specifically noted that using a lighter weight fabric for the pockets is preferred because otherwise they get a little thick. So keep that in mind as well when you're picking your fabric choices. I went with a ribbed fabric and it's really not the thinnest, so I could kind of tell it was a bit bulky, but it wasn't too bad. So keep that in mind whenever you're choosing what you want to use. Once those are sewn, then we're going to take a pair of scissors and cut a small 45-degree angle in that corner from the edge of the pant to the stitching line. Do not cut any of the stitching, however. We are doing that to the pant piece and to the pocket piece, but not to the strip piece. So as you can see, either side has been done, but not through all 3 layers. Just like that. The next step is arguably the trickiest, like most confusing part. So just watch carefully what I'm doing. So I put the pants down wrong side up, and I'm just kind of taking the bottom part and curving it upwards until those bottom portions match up with the strip, and I'm doing the same thing with the pocket. So there's that, the part where you clipped is going to be fanned open, and then you're going to line it up so you just have this teeny tiny strip that you're doing. It'll overlap with the strip a little bit and also just have some parts on their own. To make sure that I did it correctly before sewing it, I put my pin in like this, like it's holding stitches for me, and I opened it up so I could see if it was doing it correctly, and it was, and so then I went and sewed it. You can also just do a baste stitch to start off and make sure it looks right, and then go ahead and do a more secure stitch after that. And you're going to be doing that to both pockets. Make sure that you keep the pocket strip portion straight whenever you're doing this, and then you're just going to sew a straight stitch across to secure it in place. Once again, make sure that you're always back stitching on the beginning and the end. Okay, now the part to open it up and make sure that it was done correctly. So if you did it right, when you open it up, it should look a little bit like this. I noticed that my angle wasn't totally a right angle, so I actually did go back in and stitch it just a little bit more in on the end there to straighten it out. But overall, this is what it's meant to be. Now we're going to work on the top portion, just kind of straighten it all up we're going to be taking the top of the pocket piece and the top of the pant and folding each of them down. Folding the pant backward, folding the pocket down, just how you see I did it. Overall, it should look very similar to the bottom portion, where a portion of it overlaps, a portion of it doesn't, and it's using that 45-degree angle and kind of fanning it open. So we're just going to go ahead and stitch that across as well on both sides. Once that's complete, you're going to flip it back up, and it should look like this, just kind of a rectangular angled pocket thing. And now you can press it and top stitch about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of all 3 sides surrounding that pocket strip, just like that. This is a step that I do not ever skip on. I will be the first to admit I do not always press my fabric, or, I don't pull out the iron very often, but anytime there's top stitching required, I always do it because it makes a huge difference in the end. And just for those who may not sew as often, using this pivot technique where you leave the needle down, lift the presser foot, and turn is the best way to make your lines stay straight and not have like any overlapping, especially on corners. Okay, so both sides are done. Next, we're going to flip it over to the wrong side of the pant, so we can place the other pocket piece right side down onto this pocket piece. So just as a reminder, all of that tape is showing me which side is my right side versus my wrong side. Also for you to be able to tell. So I'm laying that pocket piece on top, and we're going to be stitching along the curved edge as well as that bottom portion. Just the pocket pieces, we're not stitching it to the pants at all. And once that's done, you have a pocket. Check it out. And now I'm just removing my tape because I don't want to leave it in there and wash it. Once you've repeated all of those steps on both sides, then you can move on to the back pocket piece if you're doing this one. Okay, so grab your back pocket piece, fold and press the top part down, or do a finger press like me, about 3/4 of an inch, and top stitch across. Also, I'll just make a note to say that I know that my fabric, this type of French terry, sometimes unravels. So I like to, or I went and I serged all the edges later after this step. So if you see my edges serged, that's why. The next step is to fold one side of each of them, so that one is for the right side, one's for the left, and the bottom of the pocket 1/2 inch in, and you're going to be placing it on the outside of the pants, the one that is not folded. So I'm going to show you my trick here. Sometimes I do just pin things in place, but then other times I use glue, and it's amazing, guys. Seriously, it saves me so much time, and everything stays in place really nicely. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop some glue all over this. This is a fabric glue that washes off later, so if your pocket is sticking funny to your pants later, don't worry about it. Whenever you first wash them, it'll all be fine. So make sure you fold an opposite side on each of the pockets so that it can go on the back of an opposite side of each pants. So using your placement line, hopefully that you got from your pattern, place the pockets along the outer edge of each of the legs. So just finding my line, you can't really see it in this video, but I knew where it was, and lining up the edge that I did not fold with the edge of the pants. And once again, pulling out that glue, because why not? So I'm just going to glue the corners and probably parts of the lines all around, and then I will top stitch this on. I'm just going to be using a straight stitch. I like to lengthen my stitch when I'm doing a straight stitch, so I do it around like a 3.5 length, and just stitch around about 1/8 of an inch in from the pocket. And I will also be showing you how I like to make the little triangle in the corner of the pocket. I just think it looks cute, so I'll show you how I do that in just a minute. Oh yeah, I guess I did replace the pins to like actually pin it in place as well, just making it doubly safe so it's not going to wiggle while I'm sewing it. So yeah, we're going to be sewing on those two sides that I just pointed on, and then I think I did a basting stitch on the outer edge side so that when it's time to sew the pants together, I knew they'd be in place. So this is where I'm doing the 1/8 of an inch right along the edge of where I folded it, using my little pivot trick, and then doing it again. And as I reach this top part, I'm going to go all the way to the top of the pocket, stop, pivot, go 3 or 4 stitches in, pivot, and then have that angled down to wherever my top stitching was. And it makes that little triangle, and I think it's cute. So that's why I do it. And now here's a super speedy version of the other side being done as well. Here's a little close-up of that triangle I'm talking about, and here's me visually trying to show you how to do it in case you couldn't see on the machine. Okay, next up we are going to start assembling the pants, actually sewing them together. So take the back pieces, place them right sides together, will serve along the top curve there. And same thing, take the 2 front pieces and we'll also sew that similar curve from the top down to the crotch seam. And we'll go from there. Here they are. Ta-da! Okay, so next we're going to be lining these up right sides together. So open up the front piece, put the back piece on top, and we will sew the side seams and also that inside seam. Make sure if you have these pockets that you've like lined them up nicely, pin them in place, and just so that they don't do any type of like shuffling when you're sewing. So all of that is done. Looks good. Next up, the cuffs. We're going to fold them right sides together, and we're going to sew that side right there. If you want, you can fold it down and then just sew it like that. Okay, so turning them right side out, or I guess we're folding them in half and then turning them right. So there's a right side on both sides. And then I'm folding it in half and pinning where that opposite side is at. This is just my way of marking it. So when I place it inside of the pant leg, I know that I am fitting it equally all the way around. And now I'm just going to place it inside, and I'm going to line up the seams. I like to put the seam of the cuff matched up with the inside seam of the pants, so I'm lining those up. I usually line them up in such a way that like the seams are being folded down in one direction and the other one's folded in the other direction, so it doesn't get too bulky. And then I'm going to pin the opposite side. You'll stretch it as you sew so that it fits in nicely. Do not stretch the pants, only the cuff. Onto the elastic, you're going to place it on top of each other and do a stitch to put it in the round. And then I quartered it, found the 4 different equal points on the elastic, and you're going to line that up with the 4 seams at the top of the pants. You will be attaching it to the wrong side of the pants because after it's attached, we'll be folding it down. I will be taking this to the serger, and whenever I bring elastic to the serger, I usually disengage the knife just so I don't accidentally cut it. Now, elastic can be kind of tricky to sew on because you have to stretch it quite a bit and your hands get tired. I didn't show it in this video and I apologize, but I do have a lot of videos where I've done it before, and I will link those below. Once the elastic is attached, you're going to fold it down and then top stitch all the way around, similarly stretching to fit. I always like to have a couple clips in place to make sure that my fabric is laying flat and not kind of bunching up together. But once you finish that, you are totally done. We've got the cuffs, we got the elastic waistband, the pockets. It's so cute. Here's the back side. And of course, I have to include a little styled photo of my son wearing them. We took these to the lake this weekend. And now onto the jacket. I will admit this one is a bit trickier than the bottoms were, so pay close attention. Once again, sticky notes are telling you what is what. So we have the front piece cut in half, as you can see at the little zigzag line. We have the top pocket, we have the inside pockets, we have the cuffs, we have hood, inside, outside, liner, and the waistband at the bottom, and sleeves, and anything else I forgot to say. Okay, so taking the split front piece and the inseam pockets. This is where we're going to be starting. Now, there are a few tips in the beginning that talk about using these little clips or a pin to mark this part of the pocket. I highly recommend doing that. And then I quickly use my sticky note to mark the right sides because I forgot to do that before. So here are the pocket pieces. Right sides are each sewing. I'm going to take one of them and place it on the top part and the other one on the bottom part. We're placing each of them right sides together, and where that clip is where the opening of the pocket will be, and that's how you know where to place it. Now there should be markings on the jacket itself, and that's where you're going to insert some pins. That tells you, similar to the pants, where you're going to be stitching from pin to pin. Now, to make sure that you've placed them correctly, you can look at mine as a visual. You can also look at the picture. I noticed that there's a short side, and for the top piece, that shorter side should be on the top, and on the bottom piece, the shorter side will be on the far right. I don't know if that helps, but that's what I used. So stitch them on, just a straight stitch on your sewing machine. Now we're going to clip just the pocket. Just clip right where the end of it is at, kind of where your markings are on the pockets. Up until the stitching, do not clip over the stitches at all. And also don't clip the jacket. And then next we're going to open this up. Then you're going to take the bottom piece, rotate it as shown, and flip it over on top so that the pockets line up. If you can't figure out how to do this right, just watch it a couple more times, you'll see what to do. I'm going to put a couple pins where the pocket piece is going to be sewn. There's going to be two sides of the pocket piece sewn, and then we're also going to be going across the jacket to like attach it to the jacket pieces together. So to do that, I'm going to take the top corner and kind of pull it down to meet up with that other corner. So we're going to be attaching that whole blue section and then across my two stripes. Right here where the pocket and the jacket seam meet up, I stuck a pin there, making sure that it lined up good. And then we're going to sew those three sides. I did this on the sewing machine just to make sure it was being done correctly. I didn't feel like I could be exact enough on a serger. So once that's attached, now we're going to do the other side. So we're going to line up the pockets once again, and then take the other two corners and line them up and check that the seams match and pin it. Now, as I sewed this, where the seams match up, I first followed the seam allowance that, you know, 1/4 inch for along the blue, so for the jacket, and then I followed it all the way in and then did it for the pocket. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about because it's a little tricky, because I kind of round the corner in a funny way. So 1/4 inch seam allowance right there. I continue to follow it, which means there's a bulky piece of my pocket right there that is not on a 1/4 inch. That's okay. We're just going to line it up, smooth across till we reach the 1/4 inch on the other side. So if you want to trim the excess, you could. I don't think I did. I just left it be. But just know that you're not exactly at a 1/4 inch the entire time. And then I checked my seams. They looked good. Yeah, everything's looking nice. So just kind of line it up. Check it out. I did at one point choose to understitch my pocket down. It wasn't in the instructions. It was just something that I thought might help it look nice to keep it all in place. So understitching across there, stitches there, and across each side. So you're not really stitching on top of the pocket. Ignore my fingers at that spot. If you have some overhang of your pocket, you can trim that off, by the way. You'll see me do it later. Now here's a super sped up version of the other side. We're putting the pins where the markings are, lining up our pockets nicely. You'll sew them from pin to pin. Now just to show you for this side, this where I'm marking my fingers, that's where the short side is. Make sure you have those placed correctly, the pockets. Okay, I'm gonna sew it on, and once that's done, do the little tiny clip on just the pocket, not on the jacket piece. And now here's the slow-mo version of when you open up the pocket, the rotation, flip over, just like that. And I'll show you the sides that are gonna sew. That side, eventually that side, and that side. Now we're gonna take the corner, pull it over to the other corner, match them up, perfect. And then make sure that the seam will match up nicely. Go ahead and sew those three sides. Don't mind how sped up it is. Hopefully this is helping someone. Okay, now let's do the other side. So we're gonna match up those two corners of the jacket piece once again, pull it up, and then we'll sew across there. Don't worry about the way the seams match up, or match up the seams, but don't worry about the way the seam allowance ends up. It'll be a little bit bulkier at that spot. And then do the one side of the pocket. Now that this side is done, I'm just kind of looking it over, making sure I like how it looks. I was checking out my seams. I didn't totally love how this one didn't match up great, but I figured when I did my top stitching, I could kind of like fudge it and make it match up. So lay everything down. You're gonna do up there, the stitch across, and down there. So my finger markings in that one are correct. When you do your top stitching, you'll do it at about 1/8 of an inch. I once again lengthen my stitch to at least like, I don't know, maybe a 4. So I stitch down to the pocket, and then once I reach a spot, oh, also make sure your pocket is laying downward. Once I reach the spot, I rotate or pivot, and I just go back and forth a handful of times to make sure it's closed up nicely. Here is me showing you that I did some understitching once again, and I didn't do it in a proper order. I just threw it in there. So here's what understitching looks like. I stitched the seam towards the pocket, so that hopefully if there's ever any pulling, it's pulling the pocket inward and not having it pop outward. So I did that understitching on both sides of the pocket. And if you look closely, you can kind of see it. Okay, and then doing the straight stitch on the other side of the pocket, the outer side. And this is the one that I didn't love how the seam matched up as well, and so I really tried to close it up to make sure that I was gonna like the end product, and then just stitch back and forth a bunch. In my opinion, in sewing, there's a good bit of just kind of winging it and making it look how you like it, and that is the most true in the finishing touches. You know, when it comes to construction, there's a lot you need to follow, but in finishing touches, you can kind of do what you want. And once again, that overhang you can trim. I do it at some point, I just don't remember when. And there are both front pieces with the pockets intact. Here's how it should end up looking. Not too shabby. Now let's go for the flat pocket. So there's 2 pieces. You're gonna flip them to be right sides together, and starting on one of the sides, you're gonna stitch up all the way around and then leave about 1 inch or so gap. So I'm gonna stick a pin where I plan to leave my inch gap, and also up all the way around and there. Making sure you backstitch on both ends. So there you can kind of see my stitching. And now we're gonna do all these crazy cuts along the top curve. We're gonna do a bunch of little V cutouts, and along the bottom where the corners are, we'll also clip some of the extra fabric. So never cut over the stitch line, of course. The purpose of this is just to remove excess bulk when we flip it around, so that it's not as thick. Here in the bottom, I'm looking at the 4 different corners, and I'm just kind of cutting a curve out so that when I flip it around, that corner will be able to be a little more crisp and be able to poke out a bit more. Now we're gonna flip the pocket right sides out through that little hole, and you can press out the top of the curve and the bottom corners. As you know, I don't love pulling out my iron, so I didn't really do that. I did, however, use my scissors to kind of point out those corners, push them out a little bit. So instead of pulling out my iron, I used pins to kind of hold the seams down. I know it's probably counterproductive, but that's what I did. So you're going to be top stitching that top curve because it's going to be folded down. So once you're done, it looks like this. And then you can see where I use the pins to like hold down my corners. And using the marking on the pattern piece, find where the pocket goes, place it, make sure you like it, and then we're going to use glue because it's my favorite. I love using glue. And so place it, glue it or pin it down, and then you're going to be top stitching it on the sides and the bottom, leaving the top open. You'll stitch from that side all the way down and round it up. Okay, there it is. It's attached, and see how you insert. I think this is such a cute, unique way of doing a pocket. Now it is time for the jacket construction. So take your back piece, put it right side up, and then place your front pieces on top, right sides down, so they're right sides together. And the first thing we'll do is sew the shoulders. So line those up and go ahead and serge them. There is a note in the instructions that talk about if you have thin fabric or if you're going to do any buttonholes, maybe add a 1-inch strip of interfacing to the two sides of the front pieces to prep them for buttonholes. I'm not doing that, so I'm not going to. Somehow I did my hood out of order from the instructions. It doesn't matter, but just now take your two hood pieces, place them right sides together, and sew that outer curve. For the blue is my outer piece, the stripe is my lining. Now I'm going to take the neckline of my jacket and I'm marking the center back, and then I'm going to line up the seam of the hood to the center back. So having the jacket open with the right side up, I'm placing the outer piece and lining that one up first. I did this instruction wrong, so I'm going to show you at the end how to do that correctly. And then take the lining and match it up in that center spot as well. Right side of the lining piece to the wrong side, so that when you lift up the hood on either side, the wrong sides are touching. So line up, okay, the lining piece is going to be 1 inch away from the edge of the jacket. So be aware of that. However, I did this part wrong. The outer hood should go all the way to the edge, because at the end we'll be using that extra 1 inch from the hood to wrap around the lining and finish it off. So line up the outer hood piece all the way to the edge. The liner goes 1 inch in, and that's what it should look like. Just go ahead and serge that. Once it's done, this is what it should look like. So when you fold them together, the seams are both on the inside. Great. Okay, now, oh wait, I'm going to show you how we are going to be folding it over. Okay, beautiful. Now we're going to work on the sleeve step that I skipped before. So open it up, place the sleeve. Well, actually, I always fold in half first, find the center point. And then once you find that, place it right sides together with the shoulder seam. And I'm just lining up the center with the seam. And you're going to line up each side and serge it in place. And repeat on the other side. Once both of your sleeves are attached, then we're going to be folding the entire jacket down right sides together so you can sew the side seam and the sleeve. And repeat on the other side. Then we're going to be taking the jacket cuffs, folding them in half as shown, and sew those closed as well. And then we're going to take the waistband. I'm doing this at the same time, folding in half like hot dog style and sewing it across there. And then turn it around and point out that, point out the edge really well, point out the corner so that it's like pointy. And we're going to prep the cuffs by folding them in half, turning them right sides out, both right sides are out, and then find the opposite side so that we can slip them inside the sleeve. And I'm also marking my center point. I think I just used my fingernail to mark it, but I often will stick a pin in there and then match up the pins. And then I'm matching the seams of the cuff up with the seams of the jacket. And do that on both sides as well. Once those are ready to go, just go ahead and sew them in the round on the serger. And I'm going to show you how to place the waistband. So this is for the button-down version. I'm going to show you later, if you're interested in doing a zipper hack, how to achieve that. So first I fold it in half to find the center spot on the waistband and line that up with the center spot on the jacket. So match those points up. I always do this just to make sure that when I'm, stretching it to fit, that I'm fitting everything correctly, that's evenly dispersed. Then you're going to place your waistband down, and it's going to be pinned about 1 inch away from the edge of the jacket, similar like the hood. No worries, we're getting there. Okay, I'm going to measure out the 1 inch, place the waistband, and then you're going to fold the edge over top of the waistband. just like that. Stick a pin in and do it again on the other side, and then you're going to serge that all the way across. You will simply serge across the bottom. However, do not forget to line up the bottom of the pockets into that seam as well. So this is where you're going to find out that I actually haven't trimmed mine yet. I forgot to do it earlier. So make sure your pocket is lined up nicely, and then trim it to match the bottom part of your jacket. You could also just let it cut off on the serger as you go, however you would prefer to do it. I did it by hand first and then pinned it in place. So get that all lined up. Make sure it's added into the waistband seam, and then you're going to include that. So pin it down before heading over to the serger. I took the longest time preparing the waistband to be sewn on. And I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute here and just say the reason why when I make these tutorials, I spend so much time showing you the pinning, the stretching to fit, all this kind of stuff, is because doing the actual stitching part of sewing, like the actual sewing portion, is the easy part. It's prepping your fabric, prepping, the garment to be ready to be taken to the sewing machine that you need to learn how to do. So yeah, don't mind me spending almost 10 minutes. Just kidding. I'm not sure how long this took at like normal speed, but like I took forever just lining everything up, making sure that when I took it to the serger, it would be done right the first time. So checking that when I stretch it to fit, it looks evenly dispersed. And once it looked good, then I finally sewed it on. All right, there we go. So the very last step, if you're doing buttons or snaps or anything like that, is to, first of all, look at those cuffs, super cute. Okay, is to fold over that 1-inch edge and just stitch it down, just do a top stitch all the way around from the bottom up to the hood and back down to the other side. I've seen really great suggestions to serge the edge first, so that it's kind of more finished and polished looking. I think that's a great idea. I'm not doing that at this point, but I think I did it later. I'm pretty sure. So yes, if this is how you're going to be finishing it, go ahead and stitch it all the way around. And once you're done, you'll kind of close it up, of course, and mark out your snaps or your buttons and buttonholes. However, I'm turning this jacket into, I'm going to end up using a zipper. I'm going to do a zipper hack for this. So I'm not completing any more steps. Here's a little intermission. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you how to do this from the point of what I just did, and that includes a bunch of unpicking. If you want to do the zipper hack, you'll need to make a few adjustments. Okay, here, let me start from the beginning. First of all, you're going to want to trim off about 1/2 inch of that 1-inch excess that's going all the way around the jacket. You'll see me do it later, but yeah, that's something you'll want to do, not on the hood, but just on the jacket itself. Since I'm not filming that portion, if you feel uncomfortable doing that, then you can leave it because I'll show you how to take care of it later. You'll also, when it's time to sew the waistband on, you will not do that stitch across when we did like the hot dog fold and sew it on and then attach it. You will not do that step. So leave your waistband unsewn, I guess. You'll fold it in half and you will still attach it to the bottom, but you'll want the edge of the waistband to essentially line up with the edge of the jacket. And that's why I'm going to be leaving off about 1/2 inch from the jacket piece, because the zipper only takes about 1/2 inch of the jacket that I need. I also have to unpick this part of the hood up here so that I can insert my zipper all the way. So these are all my unpicking parts of the video. You don't really need to see it, but just so you're aware of what I did. Okay, so now that that part is kind of detached, I'm actually going to go sew that back on just flat, so that it's more open and it gives me an extra, like, I don't know, 1/4 inch of the waistband to use. So I'm going to go stitch that back together right now. Now you can see that I have about 1/2 inch of the jacket edge available, and I'm going to attach my zipper. You need a separating zipper, and that's really important. That is something I had to specially order because I haven't done this very much. So you're going to have the zipper line up all the way across. This is the part where I'm showing you that I will be taking off that extra 1/2 inch from the jacket on the serger. So I'm not doing it now. So if you did that, everything should line up straight. Okay? Are you following me? If you took off 1/2 inch from the jacket itself, that jacket piece, then you should be able to line this up along the edge. Since I did not, I am placing mine at 1/2 inch in from the jacket because I'm going to chop it off later. This is how I chose to do it, in part because I was sort of making it up as I went. I was figuring out this hack as I was filming it. Okay, now tips on zippers. Make sure you have your zipper foot, first of all. Fold down the top portion of that zipper there, as you can kind of see that I did, and then make sure that your needle is on the edge so that it's the closest to the teeth that it can be, the teeth of the zipper. And then just go ahead and stitch it all the way down. I always recommend doing a based stitch first if you don't feel totally confident, or just to check that everything's right. So if you have to unpick it, it's easy to unpick, and then you can do a more solid stitch later. I did push the seam upward for the waistband, so just to let you know how I did it. Make sure to backstitch at the bottom, and the zipper should go all the way to the bottom because you want to make sure that your jacket is closed all the way to the bottom. Here is a quick look at what mine looks like. My excess 1/2 inch on that side, I'm going to trim it off when I take it to the serger. So I sewed the other side off camera, but I did want to show you that when you have the zipper pull, you can sew it down as far as you can, pause, put your needle down, move the zipper pull up and out of the way, and then continue to sew down the zipper. I was showing this one-handed, so sorry it didn't look that clear, but yeah, that's how you can move it out of your way because it will always be in the way of the presser foot. So after I had both sides done, I took it to the serger. As you can see, I'm just trimming off that 1/2 inch excess. And so if you already trimmed this, then you could even put your knife down because you don't really want to trim the zipper fabric itself, the material of it. And so I'm doing it right along the edge there because I'm just wanting to have that serged edge to give it a nice clean finish on the edge there. And if you are doing this in, my process where I'm unpicking it, then you'll want to close off these sides so that the hood is attached once again. And now I'm just analyzing it and making sure everything's well. I'm placing the lining of the hood an inch away from the outer part of the hood. My plan is to actually do a double fold. So I'm going to fold it down halfway and then fold it all the way over. So that's why I left my hood the full 1 inch length, because I thought the double fold would look nice. So I folded it down and then folded it again. If you only want to do a single fold, then you can also cut your hood at 1/2 inch shorter, just the outside piece of the hood. You can do that 1/2 inch shorter and then you would just fold it straight down. But I'm going to fold it halfway and then fold it all the way. That's my way of giving it a cleaner finish without the raw edge showing. And you can see how nicely it matches up with where the zipper is at. Once the hood is fully prepped, then I'm going to be top stitching the zipper down. So I'll start at the bottom and I'm going to go up and around the hood and down the other side. Just right up there and all the way around. By top stitching the zipper down, it makes it so it doesn't flip up anytime you're wearing it. When I'm folding the zipper back at the bottom piece, I was just tucking under to make sure that the corner wouldn't stick out and show. So that's what I was working on there. I am using the zipper foot still because I want to be able to get as close to the zipper as possible. So it's funny, I say that and I realized too that I chose to put the needle on the opposite side of the zipper because it actually matched up perfectly to stitch right on top of the edge of the zipper so that it was laying totally flat. I didn't want to be, 1/4 inch in and have there be a flap kind of bugging my kid on the inner part. So I wanted to be stitching right along the edge of the zipper there. I still think a zipper foot is good so that you can be as close to the zipper as you need to be, but who knows, maybe you would be fine with a regular presser foot. And I actually did not end up going all the way up and around. In my head, it made the most sense to make sure that both zippers were properly sewn and then go back around and work on the hood, because I wanted to be able to work on the hood from the flip side to make sure everything was being caught properly. You'll see me do that in a minute. So here I am doing the opposite side. I went from the top down on this one simply because my presser foot and needle were already set in place and I knew it worked really well on the opposite side, so I wanted to maintain having the teeth on the zipper on the same side once again. And down here you can see I'm tucking my threads in and then folding it over so that the bottom is covering up that corner. Okay, so here is what I meant by, since I was doing a top stitch, the stitch will look the same on either side. I wanted to be able to see the fold over portion, so I knew that I was catching everything and sewing it evenly. So I wanted to be able to flip it over, and I figured I could make my stitches match up either way. So this is how I chose to do it. If you feel totally fine just doing it in one continuous stitch, then go for it. The beauty in making your own clothing is being able to change things up and customize it to your liking. And that includes the process. If you don't love the process of how something is telling you to make it, go ahead and change it. I didn't want to put snaps in because I know my son is going to fight me every time I put this jacket on him. So we went with a zipper and it's going great. Drum roll please. Here is my finished product. And this is me zipping up the zipper for the first time, making sure it all matched up good, and it turned out great. I honestly love the look of the contrasting zipper. My kid is gonna love it. And here we are, a finished product. I love this set. It turned out very cute. It does take some time, but I think all of the added details are what make it special. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. As always, feel free to like and subscribe, and be sure to follow me on Instagram at Come Create with Kim for more frequent updates and hacks. I love making these videos. If you have any other hack ideas for me, let me know. I think those are really my favorite. Until next time, see ya!